Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to my show, High Road to Humanity. In every episode, I tell you powerful true stories filled with great wisdom that you can use in your own life as you strive for a higher road to travel. My featured guests will have their own unique stories to tell that enlighten your mind and your soul. So kick back, relax, and learn the secret to success when you take the high road.
First touch, strong connection, it lays deep in your soul.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And I have a really special guy here today. Rich Newman's here, and we're going to talk about the paranormal. And I'm really excited that he's here. He's got a new book out. It's called Passport to the Paranormal. And if you're watching me on YouTube, I'm holding the book up. It's 200 terrifying places you can visit. And I've visited some of these, so we're going to talk about that today. Let me just preface this with saying that every state, he says, has its spooky paranormal hotspots, and this book lists 200 haunted hotels, restaurants, bars, and museums in all 50 states that you can visit for yourself. Expert ghost hunter Rich Newman describes each location's activity as well as fascinating historical details. So this is going to be a really fun show, guys. But before I bring him on, I just want to talk about what's happening right now with the aftermath of the tornadoes. You know, there were so many states that were hit, and I pulled this off of line this morning. Power in some Kentucky tornado-stricken areas may take months to restore as attention turns to recovery. This came from CNN. It says, as thousands of people without homes or utilities try to recover from the deadliest day of tornadoes during the month of December in U.S. history, efforts are now turning to a task of rebuilding shattered communities. It said a candlelight vigil was held Tuesday night in Mayfield, one of the hardest hit towns in Western Kentucky, a state where at least 74 people lost their lives. So I just want to say, mention these things, these people. It is Christmas time, you know, you guys, it is the holidays. And if you want to give, I'm not going to endorse any particular, whether it's the Red Cross or whether you give. I know a lot of different television shows have flashed across at the bottom where you can donate. This is a place to give this year. So having said that, let me bring Mr. Rich on here. Rich, you got anything to say about that? About the tornadoes?
I live really close to it. So I'm here in Memphis. So we've actually had a lot of local organizations and groups push up there. We just had a big story actually come out yesterday, I think it was, that a local guy took his barbecue rig and hooked it up to his truck and got as many hot dogs and hamburgers and food and things he could do. It just drove up there, parked his truck, and just started feeding everybody.
Cool.
That was just yesterday.
See, that's the kind of stuff that people need to do at a time like this. You know, it's really crazy to see all these tornadoes come across the United States like this. That's a weird phenomenon in itself. I want to read a little bit of your bio. You're the author of several books exploring hauntings, ghost huntings, and the supernatural. Rich has made appearances on paranormal television programs around the world, has appeared multiple times on Coast to Coast. Welcome officially to High Road to Humanity, Rich.
Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. My first question to you is, how did you get started in this? I mean, did you see a ghost or what was it, man? I just want to know.
Well, I've always been interested in the paranormal thanks to, shows like Sightings and Unexplained Mysteries and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I've also always been a writer. So it just, when I got out of the Army and was living in Texas, I just started sending out my writing resume to every publisher I came across looking for a gig. And Llewellyn was like, hey, we would really like to have kind of a travel manual for people who want to go to haunted places and that kind of thing. And I had just finished a book about cinematic game development, which was pretty intense.
Wow.
And so I was like, this sounds fun after that, like instead of writing about that kind of thing. And so we did the Ghost Hunters Field Guide, which was over 1,000 haunted places, which was really a difficult thing to put together and a lot of research. And because I couldn't go to all the 1,000 places, I had to coordinate with, a lot of local paranormal groups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just reach out to them and just kind of say, is this a real deal kind of place or is it just crap? Is it marketing crap? Mm-hmm. And and so like when that book is now 10 years old, so Llewellyn was like, it's time to redo that one. And I was like, I would rather trim that back and maybe do like the few hundred of my favorite places instead of doing a giant, massive, atlas. Right. And that's how we got Passport to the Paranormal.
Well, it's fantastic. And he goes through every state, you guys. So of course I pulled up, New Mexico, and I pulled up Michigan because I'm from Ohio and Michigan. I pulled up a bunch of stuff. I thought it was really cool. Well, and then, so you talk about all 50 states. So you were telling me before the show, pretty much all of these you've been to.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. That was sort of well, it's funny because for the last 5 years, I've been working with Fuji TV from Japan. Mm-hmm. They have a ghost hunting show called the Nandacore Mystery that they do. And I'm their token American. So when we go to haunted places, I'm the guy going, you don't want to believe the scary things that happen in this place, and
I love it.
They've taken me around to a lot of these places. So working with them, and the show is really cool format too, because it's kind of funny. Right. Like they literally trick someone, like an actor, into coming in, and then they make them sleep in a haunted room, and then we watch on camera from another room what happens to them.
Oh my
as they react to spooky things. We've done this. We went to the Stanley Hotel, the Queen Mary, the Lizzie Borden house.
Yeah, no, wait a minute. Back up. Hold on. I've been to the Stanley. I've stayed. Yeah. Let's talk about the Stanley Hotel. And that's in Colorado, you guys. And it's kind of creepy. I've been down in the basement. I took the tour a couple times. I've taken the ghost tour where you go down in the basement. Talk about that. I mean, because that's whoa.
Well, I mean, everybody knows it because of, The Shining. Right. That was the inspiration for The Shining. And of course, their most famous room, 217, was where Stephen King and his wife Tabitha infamously stayed at, and had a paranormal experience that he's refused to talk about and elaborate on, but it gave him the inspiration to make The Shining. When we got there with the Japanese folks, 217 was actually not available.
Oh, no.
And then while we were touring the hotel, the one of the bellhops ran up to me and said, "Hey, they bailed out. You still want 217?" And we were like, "Yeah." But we had already set up in the other room, so I got to sleep in 217 on my own that night. And I did have an experience.
Tell me, I want to hear
about it.
Yes, I do.
You want to hear it?
Yes.
Because I think I know what happened to Stephen King, and I think I know what the experience that caused The Shining.
Okay.
So we were shooting till about 2 a.m. And when I got back to the room, I was exhausted. Right. So literally, I just clicked off the lights, kicked my shoes off, crawled in bed, and went to sleep because I had about 5 hours sleep before the airport. Right. And as soon as I fell asleep, I woke up and I heard a female voice in the room. Okay. So I kind of turned my phone on and shined it around the room, and to see if I could see anything. And I didn't see anything, and then I fell back to sleep again. Maybe 20 minutes later, I wake up again, and this time I actually hear her laugh, and my bathroom light is on. And I'm like, oh, okay. Goodness. So then I get out of bed and I walk to the bathroom, and the first thing that hits my mind, of course, is, man, this isn't going to be like in The Shining when they go in the bathroom and there's going to be some crazy woman in the tub.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God. Oh my God, Rich. So what happened?
So I'm going up to the door like, oh my gosh, like, what is this going to be, And I opened the bathroom door, and she had knocked my toothbrush and toothpaste into the floor and turned the light on, and that was about it. But I'm thinking to myself, could this be, though, what happened to Stephen King or Tabitha? They were staying in the room, they heard a female voice, and maybe they walked in the bathroom and did see her. Right. And then this spawned the whole idea of The Shining and room 237 and all that stuff,
Yeah, it is kind of creepy when you walk up and take the tour. They let you go through all the hallways, and it's dark. And they're narrow. It's a weird thing, you guys. Everybody should go check it out just once. And all the deer, did you see all the deer and all the elk that come up by in front of the hotel? Did you see that? Were you there at that time of year or no?
No, we didn't get to. I didn't get to do a whole lot of exploring, but we did see a lot of. I did see elk on the drive there from Denver, because we flew into Denver and drove there, so I got to see that.
Yeah.
And that's such beautiful country anyway.
Oh, it is.
Um,
It is.
yeah, it's beautiful. But you're right, that hotel, man, has a vibe.
It
There's
just
a
does. Yeah, it's like even when you go downstairs. I mean, I was kind of creeped out. I'm a psychic. I'm intuitive. I don't know if you know that or not. I'm an empath. And so I picked up a lot of that, but I didn't see anything while I was there. And I'm kind of glad I didn't actually. So I just have to ask you, we've got about 3 minutes or so before we go to break, but like, what has been your most wow thing that you've seen? You know, have you, because how can I say this? I've seen like my dad when he was passing, I was allowed to see, I don't see that much, but very rare times have I been able to see. Have you been able to see different apparitions or talk about that in a minute, if you will?
Oh, sure. I mean, since we only got a little bit of time, I'll just tell you that we're a dramatic one.
Okay.
When we were shooting with Fuji TV at Limp Mansion in St. Louis,
Right.
we had our poor suckers sleeping in one of the most haunted rooms, I think, in the country, which is the Lavender Ladies Suite of the Limp Mansion. And literally on recorded TV, we have the video of this. All of us are watching the camera live. The door to his room opens up, and a floating ball of light, not a dust orb, not a piece of dust floating, an actual glowing ball of light.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
an actual orb, a ghost light,
Mm-hmm.
floats into the room. It just hovers at the foot of the bed watching him on camera. And I was actually, it was so big that I was concerned that maybe it was even an intruder had come into the house. So we ran downstairs to the door where it was still standing open. The ball of light was gone.
Oh.
There was clearly no intruder. And I turned to the producer and I say, "You got all that on video, man. That's crazy." And right between us, which is like a foot space, a fork falls out of midair and lands at our feet.
What does that mean?
A fork. No idea. It just materialized in midair. It just fell right between us and fell on the floor.
That's bizarre. Now, how big was the orb? How big was it?
Oh, it was probably maybe a foot across.
Okay. Because it's interesting now, and we'll talk about that when we come back from commercial break. Because everybody has orbs now they see in their pictures because our cameras have enhanced. So we all are seeing, and I see orbs all the time. So maybe we'll talk about that. Hey guys, I'm here today with Rich Newman. His book is Passport to the Paranormal. This is High Road to Humanity. This is Nancy Yearout, and we'll be right back. Hi, this is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Rich Newman. I asked him on the break about orbs, and he says, "Nancy, that's not the proper verbiage anymore." But see, I don't know that. So talk to us about this. I just know that they're always, I'm very spiritual. So I see them and they're around a lot. So talk about this a little bit.
Well, I think now in modern parlance, if you want to say,
I love
it. Orb has almost become now synonymous with a fake hit. When you find dust on a camera floating through the air or a bug or something, and you'll have ghost hunters say like, "Well, he's got a lot of photos of a bunch of orbs," and you know what he means is dust and bugs and that kind of thing.
All right.
Whereas
that's like when someone says, "Bless your heart."
Exactly, bless your heart.
Exactly.
I'm in Memphis. I get that one regularly.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, and so we just differentiate so we know that it's an actual glowing ball of light that you would see without a camera floating through the air. We usually just call them ghost lights, or at least most people that I work
ghost
with
lights.
call them ghost lights. And then there's also sprite lights, which are kind of a rare phenomenon, but it's usually kind of like little twinkly lights that sometimes you see usually close to the ceiling. Like sometimes you'll walk into a room and there's just those twinklies up towards the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always a good sign because, if we're going to stay on the line of thought that ghosts are kind of electromagnetic in nature, maybe, or spirits are.
They're energy, right? We're all energy.
Yeah, that this could be sort of like the static buildup or the buildup of energy in the room. And it actually does seem to correlate that a lot of times when we see sprite lights, things start happening,
Interesting. Now, have you ever seen the more elongated, like angelic lights?
I've seen only two types of apparitions.
Okay.
what I consider, we almost have to start considering them almost like light apparitions and dark apparitions. And I don't mean that in the good and evil sense, but just in the appearance.
Okay.
On the light front, at Magnolia Manor in Bolivar, Tennessee, we were actually shooting a clip in a room, and the whole film crew saw a person start to appear in the corner. We actually saw a torso develop, and then a shoulder and an arm, and then the head started coming in, and you could actually see his eyes and mouth were kind of like this.
Oh my God.
And then it's like it almost got there, and then it twinkled out. It was like he just ran out of juice. It was like he just ran out of juice, like mid appearance. And that was a kind of a light apparition. It looked more like what you would think about as, the pale ghost coming through a room kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Then on the dark end, all the shadow people, the shadow shapes and shadow figures. Yeah. That seems to be the one that's more common and harder to spot, because ghost hunters love to work in the dark, and it's hard sometimes to see those in the dark. But we've gotten some great photos of stuff like that, in daytime. People forget daytime's great for ghost hunting now, especially in houses where there's a lot of activity and those ghostly figures and stuff like that. YouTube's alive with videos of the shadow people. Always recommend.
Who are the shadow people? Are these dark entities? What do you think? Talk about this a little bit. What's your opinion on this?
It's hard to have a scientific take on it, because it seems almost like an absence of light that's moving around. Mm-hmm. It's very odd. I don't know, but I've seen some of the best photos I've seen. A friend of mine has a haunted place in Arkansas, in Monticello, Arkansas. He wrote a book for Llewellyn too called a haunted love story.
Oh wow.
About the ghost in his house. I had been there visiting with him and was on my way back to Memphis when he sends me a photo on my phone. A group of nuns came over to tour his house, because it's this really historic home with great art in it from different artists. Mm-hmm. And so these nuns came over and were wandering the house looking at the art. And one of them was looking at a painting, and this shadow figure about 5 feet tall just steps into the doorway of the room and stands there looking at her. Yeah. And she took her camera that she was about to take a picture of this art on the wall and just snapped a photo of it. And it's clear. I mean, it's just this black, almost smoky looking thing just standing in the doorway, just looking at her.
Now, does it creep you out or make you feel like that's a dark entity? Because we are energy, obviously, we're made of energy, right. and light, is associated, of course, with the divine. So do you look at it that way, or how do you feel? I mean, was she afraid? I don't know. I just want to know, was she afraid of that? Was it a bad energy? I mean, I'm just curious. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I believe he said the nuns left right after that.
I would have. See you later.
Well,
maybe she could have blessed him, I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I think all ghost scares and how you feel about ghosts have more to do with context, because I've been in places before and, you're walking a room and then the door just slams all of a sudden. And I'm thinking, oh, cool. The ghost is trying to get our attention and let us know
that
they're here.
Yeah.
Right. And then I look over at the people who live there and they look like this. And they're like, it wants us to get out. And you're like,
but it's how you perceive it is what you're saying.
Yes. And also sometimes just being caught off guard, because I myself have been walking in the dark and then have a voice suddenly in my ear, or hear something or feel something touch me, or a loud knock or bang. It's just in the context of being by yourself in the dark, it startles you and catches you off guard. But it's easy to attribute negative things to ghost stuff, when it starts happening.
Now, are you a religious person? Did you grow up in the church or anything like that?
Well, I grew up going, my father's side was Catholic and my mother's side was Protestant, but it was in rural Missouri. This would have been along the lines of something like Pentecostal kind of people. Mm-hmm. I never really took to either, honestly. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, most of the religious people that I know are bigots and prejudiced people. Probably the most bigoted, prejudiced people I've ever met in my life have been people who would swear to you that they're a church-going Christian. My grandfather was a horrible racist, and he preached at a church.
That's probably why I don't go.
Yeah, I consider myself a deist. I do believe in a God, but I don't really believe too much in man. And so
no, come on. I'm like you. I will say this since we're talking about it and since I brought it up. I feel the same way you do. I grew up in the Church of Christ, and my dad taught Sunday school and the whole bit. But as I got older, I went to going to church, I recognized that they weren't sincere. And that was very difficult for me because I was and I am. And so it's hard. So I do my own little deal with God and I feel like you do. Yeah. And I I'm not here to judge anybody else, but it's hard to go in when people aren't true. What does it say in the Bible? Be true to thyself, right?
Well, sure. And I mean, and who's really buying what's being told at church when them offline are horrible people?
Right.
They're talking all stuff in public, and around the dinner
live
table,
it. Yeah.
They're not like that at all.
Yeah, they're not living it. They're not living it. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad we talked about that. Well, listen, I want to talk about a couple places in New Mexico because I've been to these hotels. I've stayed at the Costanado Hotel in Las Vegas, New Mexico. Talk about that. This was the Harry House. There's a bellboy named Marino who's haunting that place. I stayed there. I didn't see him. I don't know, but talk about this. Did you find anything when you were at the Costanado in Las Vegas, New Mexico?
To be honest, at both of the spots, the Plaza and the Costanado, no, I didn't have any personal experience at them, but I absolutely love them. Those old Harvey House hotels are just fascinating to me anyway, because you can see how they did all that really cool travel in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
No, the train station's right there. You guys, it's really cool because the train station is right there and there's the hotel. And then when you go to the square is where the plaza is. I love the plaza. It takes you back to you're back in the 1800s, doesn't it?
It does. And the only other place I've actually kind of felt like that was the Queen Mary does a really good job of that too. The way they've got the interior of the Queen Mary decorated, it really does feel like going back to the 1920s, like all the opulence of, the Art Deco stuff and everything, like in the age of the flappers and stuff. I mean, you really do feel like you're kind of going back in time to that. Plus, you're staying on the ship there,
That's
but
neat.
At the Castaneda and the Plaza, they're both haunted by ex-employees of the hotel too.
I know.
One is haunted by a bellboy, and the other one's known for an ex-manager, that haunts. Mm-hmm. And so, a place is kind of special when the employees actually want to stick around in the afterlife too.
And they want to hang out. Yeah. There was one more too. And I've been to the St. James Hotel, and that was built in 1872. And this is where, I'll just mention this really quick, where Wyatt Earp and Jesse James and Buffalo Bill Cody hung out. And that, out of all three, that creeped me out the most. I didn't stay there. I had a drink there. We got there at night. Anything happened at the St. James?
Well, I've never actually stayed in
there.
The St. James, but I just kind of hung out there, so I didn't really get the chance to investigate a whole lot. But I love the idea of the room 18 is the place to go. I mean, if you're going to go there, you want to stay in room 18.
Right.
What was the guy's name? It's something like is it like TJ, right?
I think something like that. They say that he's a cowboy that haunts that room. Right. Yeah. Now that I remember,
I think they call him TJ. and I'm pretty sure he's based on an actual historical figure that hung out with all the gunslingers and stuff like that. But there are so many stories that tie, especially the St. James, to all the cool places too, in Tombstone, like Big Nose Kate's and stuff like that.
Let's talk about that.
With all these same gunslingers, that were kind of going to the same spots. They were kind of going over to, Big Nose Kate was the girlfriend of Doc Holliday. So
Big Nose Kate. Oh my God. I want you to tell us about it when we come back from commercial break, because I want to use this for the podcast. You guys, the book is Passport to the Paranormal. It's by Rich Newman. This is Nancy Earl. This is High Road to Humanity, and we'll be right back. Hi, this is Nancy Earl. This is High Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Rich Newman. His book, you guys, is really awesome. You got to pick this up. This would be a really good holiday gift.
Oh, for sure. Especially if you
You
like to
know?
travel.
Oh
Yeah.
my God,
Well,
this would be so
I
great.
mean, everyone should know though that my main goal in that book was to put only places that you could go to.
Right.
Because I used to frustrate the crap out of me when I would buy this haunted place book and I would think I'm going to go and explore all these places. And then half of them were private property or they had burned down or they were gone and things.
You're like, what?
I want to go to these places. So you can go to all of those. You can actually stay in the hotels and eat in the restaurants and go to the museums,
Right. Well, go back to Big Nose Kate. I want to hear more about this.
Well, I mean, I think that was almost like a joke nickname they gave for Doc Holliday's girlfriend. And Kate was, I believe she was an ex bordello worker. And she ended up, like I say, hooking up with Doc Holliday and the gang, so to speak. And she had a really cool brothel / bar right there in Tombstone. And so the kind of the same circle of people that like you were mentioning, Wyatt Earp and
Jesse James,
Buffalo Bill Cody and people like that.
Yeah.
They kind of all had this kind of circle that they hung out in. And I think I'm not totally 100% on this, but I'm pretty sure that Big Nose Kate's Saloon was also the place that they had like the decade-long poker game going.
Where was
like
it?
It was a never-ending poker game that was in the basement of like of the saloon.
Okay.
And literally it ran 24 hours a day. People just go and jump in and play till they were done, and they'd get up and leave, and somebody would take their spot. And it just kept going for like 10 years.
Is that New Mexico or where was that?
In Tombstone.
In Tombstone. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. What is one story that you'd like to share with us that really sticks out in your mind that you'd like to tell the audience?
I'm trying to think of one maybe I haven't told too a bajillion times, but well, we had some really cool experiences. Okay, so we had one of the trips I did with the Fuji TV was we went to the Lizzie Borden house, and then a little bit later we went up to a really cool place called the Shanley Hotel, which is in New York.
Okay.
And the Shanley has an interesting history of kind of ping-ponging between family home and local hangout and like Prohibition era speakeasy and all kinds of different shady things that have happened there over the years.
Oh.
And it's when you think of rundown, creepy places, they shouldn't even really call that place a hotel, because if you went there thinking you're staying in a hotel, you would be sadly mistaken. But it's more like a hotel for people who are there to ghost hunt all night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's kind of a shabby, rundown place, but the activity is just off the charts there. I mean, you'll never go to a place where you see more things move right in front of your face, hear voices speaking in the room around you. Even we shot all night and had so many experiences that even after that, when I was exhausted and went upstairs and crawled into one of the beds, they put diaries in all the rooms so people can write scary things that happened to them there.
Right.
So no matter where you stay, you can open a book and read about all the people who were terrified there before you.
Oh my God. Are you never afraid? Are you just never afraid when you go? Because you take it all so lightly. Are you never worried or never afraid? Have you ever been afraid?
Like I said, I've been caught off guard and startled for sure, but I'm not really afraid of ghosts. In my brain, I've just reconciled the fact that these were people,
right?
And I just think of them as just another form of people, and they just really don't. Now, like I say, that said, I've certainly ran across some bad spirits that were bad people.
Okay.
Because a bad person isn't going to die and suddenly become
be good.
Ghost.
That's right.
Now that I'm dead, I'm going to stop being, a butt.
Well, no, and I really know your opinion on this, because I'll tell you what, now, not to freak you out or anything, but I help people. They come to me when they get stuck, and I help them go to the light. And that's something that I've done for the last few years. So do you think that they're afraid and they don't want to go? Do you think they have unfinished business? Do you think they're just, what do you feel? What's your gut on this one?
Well, it does seem that there's actually just only two reasons
Okay.
For ghosts. And one is they're making an active decision to stick around for something like you said. And I've definitely seen cases where that does seem to be the case, especially when we have like a really active spirit that's responding to questions and doing what we think of as an intelligent ghost. It does seem like a lot of those are seemingly people who just wanted to stick around, for whatever reason. They love the house. They didn't want to leave their family. Sometimes there's denial. They stuck around because they thought they were still alive.
Yeah.
And then the other reason is environmental factors, because it does actually seem that there are certain places that have just the right combination of water and mineral content and things where they're almost locking memories into the environment.
Right.
And that those tend to seem to be places where there's a lot more what we think of like residual.
Right.
Like ghosts.
I always call that like an energy imprint. Like it's such a traumatic situation happened that the energy is just imprinted in that. And so there may not be anybody there, but the energy is still alive. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. And it may even be quite scientific in that it's almost like recording a piece of video on videotape.
Right.
Because all the elements of said videotape could be found in the water, and then the mineral content of the bedrock in that area and that kind of thing. That's when you run across something like Eureka Springs, Arkansas, which they will tell you the whole town is haunted.
Really?
Like, everything in town is haunted. That they see ghosts everywhere in that town. And that's where the famous Crescent Hotel is,
Okay. And why do you think that? Is there a lot of crystal there?
Well, they have natural hot springs that run under the whole town with great mineral water. So we know the water and mineral contents there that's running under the whole town. There is definitely crystal content in that area and that kind of thing. So I think just
trying to figure out why they're drawn. Yeah.
It does seem like there's a lot of ghost stories there. And the Crescent Hotel is a pretty infamous, haunted spot. I've stayed there many times and had
Tell us about it. I've never stayed there. Tell me about it.
Oh, man. Now, it's funny because when you think of like The Shining, right? Everyone associates it with the Stanley Hotel, but you've been there. The Stanley's beautiful.
It is. Like, it really is.
I mean, it does have a vibe, but it's not creepy. Like you're not walking outside to a snowy tundra. There's a town right there in front of you. Like it's not like what you see in the movie.
True. That's true.
The Crescent Hotel is more like The Shining.
Really?
Hotel Overlook. It's perched up on a cliff overlooking woods and forests and things.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes I've gone there in the wintertime where I was the only person staying
there. Oh my God. That's
and I remember on one of those occasions, they used to have a rooftop bar up on the top floor. And it was not the rooftop, but top floor, called Doc Baker's Lounge. Now, Doc Baker was the doctor who would tell people he could cure cancer from that local hot spring water, and literally bring them in, watch them die there, sneak them out in the middle of the night dead, and was grifting all the people for this money. So possibly hundreds died of fake cancer treatment in this place.
What was he doing? Wait a minute. What was he doing? Was he embezzling their money? Is that what he was doing?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. He told me he had a cure for cancer. They'd pay him a lot of money to stay then it was a hospital.
Right.
And they would stay there in the hospital. And of course, he had no cure for cancer, and they would die. And then he just sneaked their corpses out so that the other residents didn't see. And eventually,
he just kept doing it.
Oh yeah, for a good decade. And they probably somewhere over 100 people died of this. But they eventually had to get him for mail fraud because they couldn't pin anything else on him. So they got him for mail fraud for sending out his flyers about his fake cancer cure. And he ended up going to prison for the rest of his life in Kansas City, I believe.
Oh my gosh.
But Doc Baker's Lounge, it was on the top floor of the Crescent. And I think I was the only one staying in the hotel in this winter. And I went up there, and they had this poor bartender bored out of his mind working up there with no guests. So I just hung out with him, having some drinks, talking about ghost stuff. And I got up to go to the bathroom. And right when I got to the bathroom door, actually, I was leaving the bathroom to come back. And I look over, and there's a guy standing in the hall just looking at me. And you know how you see someone when they're just looking at you? You kind of give them a look, but you kind of keep going.
Yeah, like, what are you looking at?
Yeah, just kind of gave him the side glance, and I kept going. Then I thought, wait, that guy was really weird, because he was almost like a cardboard cutout. He was like stock still, like just standing there. So I backed up and looked back down the hall and he was gone. And so I'm like, okay, I just saw a ghost. And so when I get back to the seat, the bartender looks at me and he's like, what happened?
He knew.
Like, I could tell by your, he's like, I could tell by your face, something happened. And then I told him what happened. And he said, oh, did he have like a trench coat? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, they call him the cowboy. They see him up here on the top floor all the time. So
Oh my God. So they're just hanging out, walking around. Now, filming this stuff, let's talk about that when we come back from commercial break. I want to talk about how you film it and how you catch these people, how you catch the apparitions. You guys, I'm here today with Rich Newman. We're having a wonderful conversation. The book is called Passport to the Paranormal, Your Guide to Haunted Spots in America. This is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity, and we'll be right back. Hi, this is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Rich Newman. We're talking about the paranormal. I'm asking him, I had something hop on me one time and I had to get it off. I was asking you if you ever had anything attached to you, and you said you had things touch you. Talk about that. That's kind of creepy.
yeah, well, it's one of those common questions ghost hunters ask, right? When they're standing
Right.
in the dark, they'll say something like, make a noise for me, or come over and touch me, that kind of thing.
Why would you do that?
And I don't know that they know what they're asking sometimes, because when it happens, you're like, oh, okay. We were shooting at a place called Talbot Tavern in Kentucky, and this particular room was known to be haunted for a young lady who hung herself from a chandelier. There. So we were in there asking her questions and that sort of thing, and I just kind of stuck my hand out, and we had video cameras running, and of course I've got a K2 meter in my hand, and so I'm just kind of doing this and saying, well, just come over here and just touch my hand. And I see my K2 start, blinking and then blinking faster. And I'm thinking, she's not really going to do it, is she? And then it felt like almost like how like pleather has that weird
Cold, clammy,
artificial, not cold, but just almost like an artificial feel to it.
Okay.
It almost felt like someone with a pleather glove on just laid their hand on top of mine.
Oh, how weird.
And of course, I reacted by jerking my hand back, and then I immediately said, sorry, like I didn't actually expect you to do it, and then I stuck it back out and I said, can you do it again? And to my horror,
he did.
It starts blinking again, and then it does my hand again. And I kept it there a little longer before I jerked it back, but it just almost felt like a gloved hand.
Weird.
Like it didn't have that warmth of a person,
Well, yeah.
But it was just like it felt like a hand, but with a glove or something on, just laid on top of mine.
Very strange. Very strange.
And of course, and there's been lots of times where we've been going through a haunted place, and you feel like something touched your back.
Yeah.
Or maybe even gave you a slight push or something, or something like that. And that catches you off. That can catch you off guard and startle people too. Now, I've seen a lot of people get really terrified when that happens, and I always quick to tell them, hey, think of it as they're just letting you know that they're here. And they're like, no, they tried to shove me. And God forbid it happens on stairs, because then they tried to shove me down the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
That's not necessarily true. I mean, just think of it from their point of view. They just want you to know
we're here. Yeah.
Yeah, and think of it, if you're going downstairs, maybe you're leaving their area and they're trying to stop you. They're like, no, I'm here,
come back. Yeah, they want they want somebody there. I see.
Yeah.
Have you ever
one of the gold?
What? Now?
I was gonna say, because one of the golden rules of ghost hunting,
okay,
and we've always even when I had my active ghost hunting group, we use an acronym called DICE, and I talk about DICE in Ghost Hunting for Beginners that I wrote, which is to detect, interact, capture what's happening, but then escalate it. And one of the golden things about I've discovered over decades of doing this now is when you get something going, when the ghost is responding to you, you say knock and it's knocking. You say something and you hear a voice.
Okay.
That interactivity between you and the ghost, if you can keep that going, the energy is going to go up. It's just you're giving off the good energy now because something's happening. The ghost is getting that energy, and it's an interactive experience.
Okay.
You're getting into it. You're asking questions. They're responding. They're taking that energy, and the activity is just going to go up. You're going to escalate what's happening to
Right.
something good and dramatic happens. And that's when you really get your best ghost evidence on camera and stuff like that.
Interesting. And what's been your best ghost evidence?
Well, on camera for sure. Like I say, we got the floating ball of light, but also at the Crescent Hotel, we shot there with Fuji TV, and in a room called Theodora's room, known for a nurse who haunts the room. She was doing everything in her power to wake up this poor Japanese guy sleeping in this room. He was so exhausted from his 17-hour flight that he came in, collapsed on the bed, just turned the lights off and collapsed on the bed. And he was out.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, Theodora is trying to wake him up with everything possible. First, she turns a lamp on in the adjacent room. It's one of those 2-part hotel rooms.
Okay.
She turns on this floor lamp, and we're like, whoa, the lamp just turned on, you know?
Right.
Then she realizes he didn't move. So she goes over, and the lamp right beside his face on the nightstand clicks on, right in his face. He doesn't move. Then his closet door, you actually see the door handle turn and swing open. She opens the closet door on camera. Nothing from this guy.
Wow. This is great. You guys are probably having a field day watching this.
I can't believe it. And then I always keep a K2 meter in the filming room too with us, sitting in front of me in case something happens in there. And all of a sudden, I think she got frustrated because he wasn't responding. We were in the adjacent room. I think she came over to us because the temp suddenly dropped about 10 degrees. My K2 started going crazy. And I can always tell when something's happening in real time because the Japanese people freak out. They take it so seriously.
Oh my gosh.
They just get this look like, and so half the crew is wanting to leave and go take a smoke break all of a sudden.
Oh my goodness.
Like everyone is just freaking out. Like, but I think she was frustrated. She wanted
some action. So
she
you
wanted
do
him out of her room, and he was not responding.
He was not responding. So you do feel the cold.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But I mean, that's always one of the classic, the cold spot thing.
Right.
And I've had a few incidents where you kind of think, is that kind of happening? And then I've had some where it's like opening, when you open up your freezer and that blast of cold air hits you that comes out of the freezer, that it's like that.
Wow.
Wow. That actually happened at Talbot Tavern too. Before the chandelier girl decided to touch my hand, it felt like a refrigerator opened up behind us and this blast of cold air hit us.
Oh, that's really kind of creepy. I don't know. So I wanted to ask you, we've come so far with film and being able to capture, we all have these cameras. You, I'm sure, have wonderful, equipment. I mean, have you seen things change like in the last 10 years where now you're able to capture maybe what you wouldn't have before, or?
I think for sure the technology of cameras has come a long way, and that is so much cheaper. So now they're in so many more places. Used to, we would go on a ghost hunt and you'd have 2 good camcorders, and you were using, high 8 or digital 8 tape or mini DV or something like that.
Right.
And, you got 2 cameras to point at 2 spots,
Yeah.
Now, you even the cheapy cameras that you get for like $40 at Wally World capture like 2K video, and you can buy 10 or 12 of those things and put them all over the place, and they're recording to a cheap SD card that can record all night without even turning off. I think it's more just, I don't think anything's changed as far as like things showing up or people getting better at capturing them. It's just that we can use more cameras now in more spots, and the video is so much better.
Right.
I was going to say earlier, there's a YouTube channel I always recommend called Nuke's Top 5.
Okay.
And this guy, he just basically every week he finds the 5 best ghost captured on film videos and posts them each week as like a top 5.
Oh,
and
that's
he
cool.
posts stuff on there that blows me away that what some people get.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was just watching one of a lady in the Netherlands who had great stuff captured already of shadow figures walking around her apartment and things like this. she was so terrified she moved to a whole nother house on the other side of the country.
They go with
and
her.
Now it's happening there. And
yeah, they went. I know. I had a feeling they went with her. I was like, oh God. So what do you got coming up?
Well, I actually started writing fiction. So I'm now working on a fiction novel that involves spiritualism in the late 1800s.
Interesting.
And I am working on another actual paranormal book that's been kind of ongoing for about 6 years, called The Disembodied. It involves a family in Missouri who's living on a very haunted property. And it's been me going back through previous occupants and getting their stories and tracking what happened there to make these really crazy things happen at this place. This poor grandmother and granddaughter that lives there have been terrified and afflicted by this terrible stuff. And this is a perfect example of like what I was talking about with when you have a bad person who becomes a ghost, like they don't just instantly reform. I mean, they're still an ugly person who's now haunting the house, you know?
Right.
And, you know, it's not quite on the level of what we think of as like, you know, inhuman spirits or anything like that. But, you know, you can have some pretty ugly and scary things happen in a house that's occupied by an ugly spirit.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Now, have you ever brought anybody in to try to clear some of this stuff?
You know, in my experience, usually the clearings work best when either A, it's someone that the people who live there trust and believe in. Like, you know, like I have gone to places where, you know, they happen to be like Episcopalian. And so if their Episcopalian preacher came in or I don't know what the ministers.
Right, minister, right.
Minister comes in and does a blessing that makes them feel better and seems to have some effect on what's happening there. Whereas if it seems like that the occupants have to be sort of emotionally invested in the clearing for the clearing to work, which seems like wouldn't be the case, that it would have more to do with a ghost.
Yeah.
But, you know, keep in mind, as I say, you know, hauntings are interactive. And these ghosts, to be doing things, they're taking that energy from the family that's there, whether it's fear or them having fun with the ghost or them just sucking up. You know, there's the old adage of young people with puberty, you know, give off a lot of energy and they're just feeding off that. That's why we think poltergeists are almost always attached to a teenager going through puberty.
Right, because they're feeding off that energy. That makes a whole lot of sense, actually, Rich.
Yeah, so honestly, like a really good way, you know, in my opinion, of clearing is if they have an emotional tie to someone who's doing the clearing, you're cutting off the energy source for the spirits.
Yeah.
So you're kind of, you know, cutting them off from having the energy to do anything. I don't know if they're really going anywhere or if they're just kind of going dormant.
I like that, though. I like that you explained that. Thank you. That makes a whole lot of sense, actually. Hey, if people want to get in touch with you, can they email you or how do they find you? Or do you have a website? Absolutely. What's your website?
Then go to my website, richnewman.us.
Okay.
And you can email me through that. I also try to post stuff on there. Like I'll post, you know, when you give me the link for this, it'll be on there.
Cool.
And I am on Instagram and Twitter at Film Gorilla, FILMGUERILLA. Like a guerrilla filmmaker kind of thing. So Film Gorilla. That's really about it. You can find me.
We can find it. I'm so glad you came on the show.
You can find me. And then, of course, there's the Amazon page and the Llewellyn publishing page, too.
Yes, there you go. Oh, my gosh. Well, I hope you'll come back. I really had a nice time talking to you. And thanks for sharing all your stories. I mean, they're really awesome.
Anytime.
Yeah, you taught us a lot about the paranormal. You guys, the book is called Passport to the Paranormal, Your Guide to Haunted Spots in America. It's by Rich Newman. This is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity. Thanks for joining us today. Everybody take care and God bless.
Connect the dots and keep the motion. Can achieve your goal. Let's hit the high road.
Hey, you guys, join me next week on The High Road for more stories filled with wisdom, love, and hope for our future. Have a fabulous week and know that by staying on the high road, you will make it to your destination. Visit my website, nancyyearout.com, where you can book a private session to learn how to tap into your own abilities. And check out my YouTube channel. It's Nancy Yearout's High Road to Humanity.
You can achieve your goal.